Hi there. I just want to share a great book that I've been reading. I'm probably about three quarters of the way through, and I thought, well, why not share a bit about it right now? Because it's so practical. As I've been reading it on the Kindle, I've highlighted more of the text than I've left unhighlighted, which is just a signal that this is a really great book. And it's not a new release, actually. It's from 2019. The book is called Million Dollar Weekend by Noah Kagan. And I want to share some things that really resonated. I guess, first of all, why I like this book so much is there is a really clear outcome in the title, $1 million weekend. I love that the container of that you're going to get some output. It's not just a philosophy. It's like, hey, this is exactly what you do. And Noah lives this. And so he just draws on so many great examples. He shares a bit about his history, how he started all these multi-million dollar companies. And the approach is something that anyone can start. And I think that's probably the best thing about this book is that he makes it just so accessible and really breaks it down. So I'll share a few quotes, a few things that stood out for me as well, and I'll put a link to this in the show notes. One of the first quotes he wrote, "The thing is, most people don't ask for what they want. They wish for it. They make suggestions and drop hints. They hope. But the simple fact of business is that only by asking do you receive what you want. No ask, no get." That applies to every part of life. Seriously, every part. So just in terms of like how this book is structured, it really kicks off with just starting and experimenting. So something that I talk a lot about on this podcast, like the way that I like to live is just by kicking off. And he also emphasizes like success in business comes from taking action, not overthinking. It's important to try a lot of small experiments and actually expect that most of your ideas will fail until you find what works. So actually the goal is just to it's basically a numbers game, try to fail and get that out. And by doing that, by failing, you'll actually find a breakthrough idea. And it's small experiments here rather than like creating stuff and putting all this effort behind the scenes to build something. He also says, look for problems and not products. And so I think often we like to build, I think Jade and I spoke about this when we had a quick chat a couple of weeks ago. We like to build things that we think, oh, this is a great idea. Oh, what a great product. And then we try to retrofit it into the market. And he's like, no, look for problems, not products. The best business ideas start by identifying real problems that people face, listen to people's pain points and frustrations. And he said most entrepreneurs are told to create a minimal viable product, but that approach focuses too much on what we want to sell instead of what the customer needs. A better approach is to identify problems and talk to potential customers right away for feedback. And what he shares in the book are some great websites you can use in terms of even going onto Reddit and investigating threads there. Now, because we're in 2025 now, there are tools like Manus AI, which you could actually send into Reddit to look for potential problems, to get quotes and to go, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What are people sharing around this problem? The next bit I want to share is so important, and this is about getting real validation. I love this quote from Noah. He says, if they don't buy, they're not a customer. They're a focus group. It's so good. Because like, how often do we share ideas? And I think Rob Fitzpatrick talks about this in the mum test. Like you share ideas with your family and friends and everyone's like, oh, that's so good. But it's very different if you actually then in the next breath say, cool, well, I'm selling it. What are your credit card details? That's very different to saying they love an idea compared to, oh, I want to buy it. Again, this is another thing. Before investing all of your time and resources, the goal is to secure a payment from at least 3 customers within 48 hours. Again, really practical. And this approach ensures there's genuine demand for what you offer. In this book, Noah writes about the beef jerky offer. So he wanted to make $1,000 in 48 hours and he wasn't allowed to use his social media to do it because he's got like a ton of followers. Of course, he's got his brand and he knows a few people. And so what he did was like, okay, let me sell beef jerky. But instead of selling beef jerky on a stand and just by individual packets, he did a bit of back of the napkin math and realized that the best way to do this was to sell a subscription to beef jerky and email a few of his mates. And basically the email said, hey, you'll get premium beef jerky delivered to your door every month, $20 a month. I require 3 months of payment in advance. And he secured $1,000 by the end of the 48 hours just by reaching out. And he actually had a link to pay. And that's what he did to validate the deal. Afterwards, he figured out how to meet that demand. But the first step was actually validating the offer as well. Now, notice there was no logo. He didn't have a business name. There was no fancy landing page. It was just an offer via email and a link to pay. That's how easy it gets to be, especially when you're validating an offer. Whereas I do see many people try to like get, and this is me, I get a domain name first. I love securing domain names. I've got so many. But it actually is as simple as like, I'm going to send a few emails out. Here's a link to pay. Are you interested? Let's go for it. Now, a common red thread through the book is really overcoming the fear of rejection, which I completely agree with. Most people fail because they're afraid of rejection. In business, you need to keep asking, whether it's convincing customers to buy, suppliers to sell, or partners to collaborate. Rejection is a necessary step, and you need to turn rejection into a learning experience. A couple more things that I share that stood out as real highlights is solving real pain points. This is the whole painkillers versus vitamins. And I think a lot of businesses and a lot of business books fail because they are vitamins. They're nice to have rather than painkillers. They're meeting a problem head on. And so really, if you want to ramp up the urgency, if you want to get sales, you got to focus on painkiller products. And this is really all about positioning. How do you position your product as solving a critical problem rather than as an optional enhancement? That's what I went through with the 2-hour workshop blueprint, because I could have written a book about workshops generally, but I'm like, no, I want to write to the problem where someone's like, oh my gosh, I've got to run a lunch and learn in 2 weeks. How the heck am I going to do it? And then my book becomes the painkiller for that problem. It becomes an urgent problem with hey, the book is a solution as well. So a couple more quotes from the book that I'll leave you with. He writes, we all have gaps in our thinking. The best way to fill those gaps is to survey your audience, get feedback and iterate all the way to the first sale. And then the final quote I loved, launch ugly, learn fast, fix it in real time. The people who win aren't the ones with perfect plans. They're the ones with imperfect action. Such a great book. Hope it inspires you to get some validation on whatever idea you're thinking about, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.